How's everybody doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good to
He's
see you again
fired-
this week.
He's fired up. I'm just
I'm
telling
ready to
you.
rock. Let's do this.
Yes.
You gotta love life.
Yes.
It's made, this week has been challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
You want to share?
You know, just love the appreciation. It makes you really appreciate life sometimes.
Yeah.
The challenges that you have.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, why not? You know how you ever get in that spot, or you ever get in a spot where just everything's rolling, right? So you find yourself like prepping yourself, like this last week, like the morning sessions have been like rocking and rolling, been like even getting up earlier than I normally would, putting even more time into myself. I even started putting my phone like away. So not even like my morning meditations. I usually have an app. I have an app.
Okay, because I said to Jamie, I could tell you're back in town because Jim isn't blowing me up in the morning anymore, so that makes sense. Because you usually send something in the morning.
Oh, yeah. Well, so what I started doing was I went and bought like an alarm clock. And these are probably, people don't even know what that is anymore. Like you plug it in, and it's got the digital flashing lights, and the radio can come on, or that annoying alarm comes on. So I went and bought one of those, and that's my alarm clock in the morning if I need it. Usually been waking up fine. So I keep my phone in the living room on the charger, or this week. Just wanted to try that out. So everything seemed like it was on point. Spending more time with myself, like getting up, energized, ready to rock and roll. And then just like complete breakdown in like communication between like just me and, you know, some people that I'm working with, and it's been like challenging, like really challenging.
So uncomfortable conversations need to be had?
They had those hard conversations.
Yeah.
And I think but that's what I love in that whole thing. That's why I was like just sitting down, I was like just laughing, like, all right, there's opportunity here. There's definitely an opportunity to you know, to force almost in like a great sense to have that conversation when the other person is, you can tell they are not communicating. I think one of my challenges, I want to get your point of view on this, is so I found myself like really being present and wanting to listen, and wanting to hear what is really going on across the space to improve our communication. So we would sit down and talk, and it would seemingly be this conversation where I'm listening and hearing what that person needs, what they want, writing it down, setting that up so I can better understand and communicate with them. And then no follow through on that other person's end whatsoever. And the complaint was that there's no communication. So the complaint across the space is there's no communication. So I'm sitting, like we had talked about in the last episode, which I think we have some questions on that as well. But it was about showing up. So I like really took that on, like how am I going to show up this week? So I just that extra time and doing it. But then across the space, it wasn't that expectation of thinking when you show up, everything's going to be fine. And it wasn't like that. So it was tough.
Yeah. Because then you were asked to communicate because they were feeling that you weren't communicating. And then it
wasn't necessarily, there was no like pointing finger, like you're not doing this, I'm not doing this. It was, we just weren't communicating the best that we can. So we were sitting there trying to solve it, and I was just making sure that I showed up in order to have the best communication in that relationship. But then on the other side, like it was just a complete, I could see the breakdown. And I could see where I've broken down in the past with it. So I wasn't like, there was no make wrong. I was like, okay, then how do I show up to allow that person the opportunity to be their best? But it was like, it never happened. Like every single day, it was like, did we even talk yesterday? Like, did we even actually have a conversation yesterday? Because I could have swore we agreed on this. And it was like nothing moved forward. So how do you handle that?
Well, did we talk about this? The book 5 Languages of Love?
I don't know. I know we've talked about it. The book?
Yeah, there's a book. It's The 5 Languages of Love, and it's really a great book because people receive differently. Like, you are a much better giver than you are a receiver. Like, you like to do things and help people, but
Right.
then when they try to help you, you're like, you pull back, So yeah, like stop.
We're good over here.
Yeah. So maybe that's what's happening. Maybe you should. I have a lot of people on my staff take the quiz, and the 5 language of love. It's not just about romance. It's about all kinds of. Everybody receives differently,
Right.
And I think when we talked, you said you liked words of affirmation. Maybe
I thought I was something else, and then I had a friend point out. They're like, "No, you're words of affirmation," and they showed up in my life, like affirming me and doing that, and I was like, "Ooh, this does feel good." I much prefer this than
So
where I thought I was.
Maybe ask. Say, I don't know how to reward you. I don't know how to communicate with you properly. So let's do this test and see where we are.
I think I have to do that.
Yeah.
Because it was funny, because it was like towards the end of the week, I think it was just a couple days ago, I was like, all right, I got to try this differently. Maybe if I email them and like specifically write it out so it's, number one, it's recorded, right? I can see what I'm writing, making sure that specific, they have to read it and see that these are the words. So there's no emotion, there's nothing to be mistaken about it. Here's the specific question. It was like, how do I best communicate with you in a way that you can listen and we can advance this conversation? And then the email response back was, I'll have your answers to you by Monday. And I'm like,
So we're not going anywhere.
we're not going anywhere. And the request at the bottom was, because I knew what their schedule was. We worked together. I was like, and it was open. So I was like, if you please have this to me by 8, tonight, so that way we can move powerfully forward through the weekend of what we had already planned. And then it was like, I'll have this to you by Monday. And I was like, so now what about the rest of the weekend and everything that's supposed to be going on?
Yeah, there's some stuff going on.
Something's going on.
Yeah. You definitely need to do the 5 languages and figure that one out.
So I know that we had a question from last time with showing up.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
do we want to go ahead and do that? Yes? Question?
Oh, yes. Okay, so it was about the last episode.
Yeah.
You were talking about not just showing up and making the best out of the situation. It's actually being the best that you can be before you even show up. So one of my challenges is juggling responsibilities.
Right.
So, I love the company that we started. I love working for this show and other shows, but I also like going to my temple and participating in events and yoga. Trying to really get into the Ashtanga yoga, and I'm realizing I'm not actually completing or fulfilling all my responsibilities. So as a result, things are slipping. So how am I? What do you suggest for someone who wants to be the best before they show up, yet obviously not doing that at this moment?
You got it?
That's a good one. I battle with that all the time. I think that's getting back to like, what are your core values, like, and then associating those with the things that you have going on. So if I heard you right, it was the other companies. Well, this one, the other companies got working for the temple and your yoga, right? So we've got those 4 things. Then you could just, for me, it's figuring out like my hierarchy of values. Thank you, Dr. D. Martini, which we, yes, and he's got this amazing value system or value determination project on his website, which we'll put up. But I'm doing that and revisiting that for myself and associating those values with the things that I want to get done, then allows me, when I plan my week, like, where am I going to spend that time, and what's going to make me, happy and feel full of joy and feel completed at that time. And I think also with that, we will also want to be tolerant and allow ourselves that that's going to change, and that we can have the freedom to be able to change that. And then, maybe it's one week you're going to do more yoga just because that's what your body and your soul needs at that time. maybe this is a week that there's, it's crunch time for something else, but associating that with your values so that way when you show up mentally and that mindset is there that you're showing up because this is what's of value to you, this is what it means to you, and this is who you're going to be that week when you show up. That's what's been helping with me lately because I'm in the exact same situation. Yeah.
So Jim, you said you were talking about problems in communication. That is one thing that I usually deal with. And so I want to know, for example, in that case that you wanted to communicate with this person and you even send an email where you're expecting, another or to the communication to be more fluid. So in that case, how can you handle, or Jody, how can you handle this situation about not expecting? Because I believe, of course, it's a problem of communication, but it's also a problem of expectation. Expecting that another person will reply in the way that you want to, or I don't know. So how can you handle that?
Yeah.
Because it's that you only can control yourself. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think that's, for myself, that's just getting really clear with who you are and where you're at, and not expecting anything from anyone else. So you can only do the best for yourself, show up, who you are, and then, really be tolerant and listening of that person on the other side. One tool that I use or that I've learned to use, through that, like when you're really listening, is you can listen to what the people are saying, and then you can also be listening to what they're not saying. And when you listen, and I think that's a very powerful practice, because when you're sitting across that space and you can hear what they're not saying, it allows you to be more tolerant with that person because you can understand that they're not getting it, or maybe you're not being clear in your message. So I always want to look at, number one, I'm always going to turn and look in the mirror and see how am I showing up and what my communication is first, and see, am I being clear? Is my intention there? And am I getting across exactly in the way that my message needs to get across and land? Then I want to repeat and ask that person, what did you get? Like, do you mind repeating back to me what we just discussed about? So now I can know what they were listening. Did I present it the right way? And then if not, then like, okay, without frustration, just reshare that. Got it. Okay, I can. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's not what I meant to say, or if that's not how I wanted it to land. Try it again, repeat it again, ask for feedback, and get it back. And then there's the challenge on that. Then you walk away, and if there's an agreement, and they don't follow through with that agreement, that's what can make things.
Yeah, you get frustrated with them.
You get frustrated.
A lot of times when I'll have a conversation, I'll say, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I heard you say, so then you can go back and forth with that. Texting and emailing, though, I like to text and I like to email, so then I can reference back, but then we have a lot of miscommunication with that all the time too, so it's having expectations. That's the hardest thing, is that where you are in your life might not be where somebody is in their life, or where they are in their moment, or in their emotion, in their space, whatever, at that time. And when you put an expectation on someone, a lot of times you do get disappointed because they're not responding the way that you want them to. I love doing, it's called the sandwich effect. I don't know if you guys have ever practiced using it. Like, this is what I think about you, this is what I feel, da-da-da-da, and all these wonderful things. Then your meat goes in the middle. I'm not sure if you're meaning to do this. I think I may be taking this way. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm hearing. And then end it with, I love you. I love this relationship. I love whatever. And then finish it with, this is where I would like to see things go. So you put a positive, you put your meat in there in a nice way, and then you put your love in again at the end. And then then people don't feel attacked on that.
Yeah.
So it's always one way to try it, and if it doesn't work, then just kick them. I don't know. Just kick them. No.
Sometimes people do need to get slapped around a little bit. I know for myself that's true. Sometimes you just got to get slapped around. You know what I mean?
We can pick apart.
No, that's good. It's like sometimes, right? You're just like,
Yeah, right? Are you listening to me?
you're listening. And then managing expectations.
Yeah.
Right? You can't expect that person to always be, you can't expect them, you can't expect anything, I guess. That's what it really comes down to. But what you can expect are for people to show up who they are. Mm-hmm. So, and we have all those flaws. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We don't always show up. We're not always 100%. We're not always listening. So even in that conversation where there's an agreement, there's also the other side of the expectation that that agreement's not going to be followed through with. Yeah. So I think as long as you set yourself up with the possibility that the agreement's going to be met and we're happy, yay. And then there's also the possibility that the agreement's not going to be held up to. And all that really does is nothing happened. It just, the agreement wasn't fulfilled. So it now allows an opportunity for another conversation, for you to really grow in that relationship, figure out, even more powerful way to communicate. And, you just continue to have, you'll have breakthroughs and breakthroughs and breakdowns. That's just the way that life is. So it allows you to be a lot more appreciative. Yeah. If you can expect those things to happen, and when you expect them, you just know that they're already going to happen. And
we all have to deal with all kinds of different people. I get that, but I'm huge on my tribe, and just having like-minded so that we get each other, and it's an integrity all the time, so that's something too, is you might want to do some weeding of your garden, really.
Man, that's tough. So I was having it was yesterday, day before, I went to lunch with a friend. And they're asking, how's everything going, with what you got going on? And then how's your team? Mm-hmm. And then how, they know that we're looking for individuals to, fulfill certain roles. And they're like, how's that coming along? And I found it an interesting challenge of where I'm at is, like, for the most part, I like to feel that I'm, like, just really tolerant, forgiving, and I can be, like, I don't expect too much of people. But now, with more experience and learning about myself, becoming, like, really more self-confident, knowing who I am, what I want, I've also gotten to the point where it's like, I love you, God bless you, but you're just not the right person at the right time for us to have any sort of relationship. Mm-hmm. Doesn't make you wrong, doesn't make me wrong, or anything. It's like it's not you, it's me. It's not you, it's me conversation. But I think that's so powerful. Like once you find out like who you are, now you have an environment that you can set up to thrive, and then you get to really pick and choose, who you want to be on that team. Mm-hmm. And as long as you can come with a clear space with that and not make any, not making people wrong for who they are at that time, I think you can really disassociate from those people. I know you used the term weeding out. Mm-hmm. I was like, I love that, like, the concept, but I also think we want to think of it, in a way it's just like, trying to take away weeding out. It can be like a negative little, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it's not like they're bad. No. But it's just like separating. Yeah. Well, or it's just not the right time. It's just not the right timing. Maybe in the future as we grow or, in our own ways, that we may reconnect, and this may be, a great relationship later on. Yeah. Lisa Nichols has a really great analogy that I love that she used is, sometimes you're on the highway and you'll be on a highway and it'll be a 6-lane highway. And then all of a sudden, then it goes down to a 4-lane. And then sometimes you're on a 1-way. And then all of a sudden, again, you'll pick up and go on to a 6-lane. So there's times when you're going to have a lot of people in your life, and then we're not weeding, we're driving into a different direction, and so it might be a little bit less, and then it can pick up again. And sometimes those people pick up again in your life later, and sometimes they don't. Right. So it's interesting. It's a cool conversation. It is. So, it is. Ask them. What am I asking them? Oh. Is there anything in your life, you guys, that you might need to drive a little differently through? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Or anything that you really want to, like, I think really getting that mindset of owning, like, who you are at the moment, and then being, tolerant of yourself to change that at any given time, but then just being able to communicate that, especially with yourself. Own yourself, who you are, where you're at, and what makes you happy and confident at that moment. And then you get to pick and choose, who's going to be around to support you, who you're going to choose to be around to support you.
Yeah, and not everybody's meant to be on your journey the whole time, guys. They're not. People get dropped in, and they leave, and it's always a growing thing, and it's cool. It's really, really cool. Like, I look at my life 5 years ago, even a year ago, and it's completely different than what it is now, Yeah.
Sometimes it's tough to see that, like, when you're in it, though, right? That appreciation and gratitude sometimes comes
after
a week, months, a year after. You look back and you're like, oh, thank you. I do love you.
Yeah.
At the time, I wanted to kick you.
He wants to kick me a lot of days, you guys.
So, yeah.
Look, he won't even deny it.
What was that the other day? The opinion?
What opinion? What are you talking
When
about?
you asked me, I forget what it was. You said, but you wanted my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Because he asked me a question, and I was like, you really want my opinion? He's like, no, I was just asking.
Not going to make a difference, but I just want to hear what you had to say.
Yeah, so.
It would be
but
nice
at least
to
you're
hear.
honest about it.
I love just hearing other things. It doesn't really, like, necessarily going to impact me unless it does. But I still love hearing where other people are at. Yeah. So that's I'd love to hear. Is there anything that is, or anybody that's holding you out back that you haven't been able to have that tough conversation? And have you had that, or do you even want to have that tough conversation? And then, what are you going to choose to do about it? And, how is that going to, impact your life, impact their life? I think if you always, not only yourself, but if you look at how it's going to impact the other person's life, then it allows you a different point of view when you're sitting down with that conversation. It's not like you don't want to burn any bridges or make anybody wrong. You don't want to have that, like, on your soul. So it's like, if you can sit, like, here's the outcome, or, I can see that this isn't right, but how's that going to impact that other person's life? Then you can have an easier conversation around it. So I'd love to hear more of that, just where people are at with their conversations, who's supporting them, and then what your values are. What your values are that's going to drive you into that conversation or into anything and everything that you do.
And honestly, guys, do Dr. DeMartini's on his website, the values. You'll be really surprised, because there's things that you think that you want and you're saying it, but then you aren't really, they're not on there. Like, I'm consistent on my top 3. And I was like, well, I'm going to retake this test. I'm going to make sure. And I've stayed consistent. But my friend that was with us, Carrie, she was like, I said I want all these things, but then when I did his test, I looked and she goes, those things I want are at the bottom of my list,
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And really, it kind of just gives you a really cool soul check, and, then you can see a lot of times where your blocks are coming from, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
So we look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome.
Yeah, you guys have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.